Hi friends, welcome back to Get Off My Lawn Please. Melinda here, and Diego Boo Boo is here too. Diego Boo Boo, say hi. You said hi, good boy. I love this boy, he's a good boy. Today is part 2 of reading the Vickie series by Mike Sims, my husband. Those of you that are new here, there is no copyright issue. My husband is the author, Mike Sims. He's given me permission to read this book. There are other books in the Vickie series. Check them out. Available on Amazon and off of our website, www.mazaroff.net. I'll put the link in this video somewhere. Okay? And I'm having phone problems still, so we'll see how far we get on this. We're going to start with the chapter, The Grass is Meaner on the Other Side. Tom, Mary, and Vickie wake to the smell of bacon in the air. They wander into the kitchen, and Dan has a spread of breakfast laid out for them. Dan says, "Good morning, guys." Mary replied, "Oh my God, Dan, I would have made breakfast. You guys are still recuperating from your trip. Besides, it has been a while since I got to make breakfast for people. I love cooking, and you guys better get used to being catered to." Tom smiles. "Okay, brother, you win. This looks great." They all sit down as Dan dishes out eggs, bacon, and pancakes. Vickie exclaims, "Pancakes?" Dan smiles and says, "Here is some real maple syrup, cutie." Vickie smiles at Mary with happiness, as it's been a long time since she has had such a breakfast. Mary smiles back with pride. Tom is in his own world, chomping on bacon as if it's the last pig left on earth. Dan sits down and shares the moment. Mary says, "Dan, thank you for everything." Dan smiles, "Thank you for being here with me. This home needs a family again." After breakfast, everyone goes to get cleaned up and dressed for the day. Dan catches Tom alone. "Tom, how are you doing on funds?" Tom sighs. "We have a couple of hundred left." Dan hands him an envelope. Tom asks, "What is in the envelope?" and then opens it to find $5,000 in hundreds. "Dan, I can't take this. I have plenty of money from Susan's insurance plus my pension. Look, I am 23 years older than you. I am not a young man anymore and have lived my life. I have money. You need it. Take it. For your family's sake. Get clothes, whatever you need. If you need more, I have it." Tom draws some tears and hugs his brother. "I love you, brother. Just take care of those two precious women, okay?" Tom smiles at Dan and walks away. Derek, the son of Dan, arrives with his wife Sherry and son Albert that afternoon. Hugs go all around as Dan introduces Derek and family to Tom's family. Tom told Derek, "You were just a kid the last time I saw you, and look at you now, nephew." Derek replies, "Hi, Uncle. It is good to see you after all this time. Say, you like to play golf? It's been ages, but I miss it. Let me take you to a cool course next week." Tom smiles. "Sounds good to me." Derek looks down and sees Vickie. He kneels down and asks, "You must be Vickie. I'm your cousin Derek. You are such a pretty girl. How old are you?" Vickie, shy and looking away, says 8. "Well, my son Albert is 1, and I think you two are going to be fun cousins." "I thought we were cousins." Derek laughs. "Yes, Albert is your second cousin." Derek stands up and vigorously messes Vickie's hair and says to Mary, "She is adorable." Mary replies, "So is your son. We just have a very pretty family, I guess." Derek laughs. "Absolutely." Mary looks over and Tom is giving her the evil eye. She stops smiling and looks away as if she has something else to do. Dan sees the interaction and starts to tell everyone, "Well, everyone sit down and let me bring you all some tea." Everyone sits as Dan goes to bring teas. Derek asks Tom, "So, was it a long trip?" "It took a couple days, had to sleep in our car halfway through. We got lost in one point and stopped at an abandoned old town called Destiny. Only thing there was an old gas station, someone still running it. Strangely, it did not seem he had any gas to sell or anything else for that matter." Sherry responds, "That is odd. Guess he just could not let go being there." Mary says, "That is what it seemed. He said something strange to Vickie. Something about she would be important someday and influence many. I don't know. It really bothered me." Tom replies, "Yeah, those people out there by themselves turn feral after a while." Sherry says, "Oh, Tom, you are so bad." Tom and Derek laugh as the two seem to get along well. Derek says, "Look, you guys settled in fast for just getting here last night. Dad told me you had a trailer. Tom replies, that's right. We rented it and packed it full. Fact is, we sold a lot of things before coming down so we could afford to move. I lost my job at the factory and our savings just could not hold us long. Sherry says, I'm so sorry to hear about that. Tom replies, yes, us too. I was at the factory for 10 years. My dad got me the job there. Can't believe he had just retired after 40 years when he and Mom were killed. Derek looked at Tom and Dan in the kitchen. Derek looking at Tom and Dan in the kitchen. Did they ever catch the men that did that? Tom stares intently and says, no, they never did. Quietly to himself, he says, and they never will. The room draws quiet as Dan breaks in as a fresh air. Here are the teas. Everyone refreshes themselves as Derek says to Dan, Tom was just telling us about Grandma and Grandpa. Dan says, yes, it was a horrible event. Mom and Dad were set to go cruising all the time. They went once before they saved their pennies to go often in retirement. Derek says, they must have had a nice savings for you guys when they passed. Tom replied, we both got something, but it did not last long for us. Mary looks away in disgust as she watches Vickie playing on the floor with the golf and tennis ball as if they are planets. Derek looks down at Vickie and says, Mary, what is she playing? Mary replies, she loves astronomy and wants to be a scientist. Vickie says, my telescope broke. Derek says, well, you know what, Vickie? I have a really cool telescope, and you are welcome to see it any time. Vickie's face lights up and she looks at Mary. Mary smiles as Vickie goes back to playing planets. The evening draws to a close as Derek and Tom walk down the sidewalk having a couple of beers. Derek asks, Tom, do you like guns? Tom replies, I used to have a nice pistol, but we had to sell it. I have a couple of decent pistols and a shotgun. We should go to the range and blow something up. Derek, thanks for making me feel really welcome here. I can only imagine what you guys have been through. We are family. We are in it together. Tom has a feeling of friendship with Derek and identifies with him. Derek and his family leave at the end of the evening meal prepared by Dan. Mary and Dan clean up as Tom comes in and grabs another beer and sits in front of the TV. Mary tells Dan, I wish he would not drink so much. Dan says, I notice he drinks like a fish. They continue washing. After a few minutes, Dan asks, Mary, can I ask you a personal question? Mary replies, sure. Does Tom hit you? Mary washes, not looking up as Dan stops and stares at her. Mary looks up at Dan and smiles and looks down again. She then stops for a brief moment and says, sometimes. How about Vickie? Mary looks toward the living room at Vickie sitting on the couch next to her dad. Fortunately, no. Dan continues washing. That is not right. Please don't mention it to him. No, I won't, of course. They draw their place as Dan stares at Tom drinking his beer. Later that night, Tom and Mary put Vickie to bed, and she drifts off to sleep, dreaming of planets and stars. Mary smiles, looking at Vickie's face asleep as Tom is standing near. Mary looks back at Tom with a smile that soon escapes. Tom looks at Vickie and back at Mary and then slaps Mary hard. Mary's eyes are rolling with tears as she asks, why did you hit me? Tom replies, you just had to be a bit of a smartass to Derek and his family tonight, didn't you? And I thought you told Vickie not to mention anything about her telescope or the other toys. Mary nods her head yes. It was my mistake. I'm so sorry. Please don't take it out on Vickie. Tom sneers at Mary as she covers Vickie with her body. Tom rolls into bed and then promptly passes out. Mary goes into the bathroom and puts her face in a towel to cry. Bearing arms at close range. Derek and Tom decide to go to the gun store to replace Tom's gun and shoot some. As they come home, Derek says, that is a nice .45 pistol you have there. Tom replies, yeah, it's a 1911 style like my dad had. Good shooting gun. Pistols are nice, but for home invasion you need a shotgun. Tom laughs. I will do just fine with my pistol. Just saying, nothing stops the fight like a shotgun. The two return to Dan's house as Derek drops Tom off. Tom comes in and shows Mary and Dan his new pistol. They are obviously concerned as Dan asks, that is a beauty. Did you get a lock for it? Tom looks at him with a smile. Don't need a lock. Vickie knows not to mess with my stuff. Dan replies, I'm not worried about Vickie, but worried about some of the kids that visit here. Vickie will have friends when she starts school. Look for my peace of mind, put a lock on it. Fine, I'll get a lock tomorrow. Thank you. Dan leaves to his room as Mary stares at Tom. Vickie is playing only momentarily distracted by the cold black gun. Tom smiles at Mary and briefly aims it at her. Mary's eyes get big and says, Tom! He interrupts her quickly. Hey, it was just a joke. Besides, it's unloaded. Every gun is loaded, even unloaded ones. Even I know that. Whatever. Tom leaves it on the couch and gets a beer. Please put that away if you're going to drink. Tom pops the beer can open. What's the matter? You afraid I was going to go mad on you? I'm just saying, have some sense. Alcohol makes you forgetful and careless, and with the dangerous weapon, something will happen. Tom was about to take a drink and sets the can down on the table. Fine. Tom picks up the gun and says, Vickie, come here. Mary reacts. Tom? Tom gestures her to shut up. Vickie comes over and says, that is a pretty gun, Daddy. Yes, it is, and it's for our protection. You don't ever get near it. Understand? Vickie nods yes. And if you see anyone near it, you stop them. Understand? Vickie nods yes and says, yes, Daddy. Tom asks, do you want to hold it, kiddo? Mary shouts, Tom! Oh, fine. Okay, Vickie, go back to playing. Okay, Daddy. Vickie returns to her game as Tom stares at his blue steel glory. Mary just stares in disdain. Tom packs the gun off to the bedroom to hide it and comes back to finish his beer. My brother, my keeper. It's been over a year, and Tom has been working at a local manufacturer, but he and his family have settled as their home with his brother Dan. Mary has mastered the art of hiding Tom's abuse so not to get Dan's involvement. But Tom working has made a marked improvement in his temper, but the drinking stays the same. Mary notices that Mary notices that Dan has been getting tired more quickly than normal as she asks Dan, are you okay? Dan responds, I have pains in my shoulder blades once in a while, and my chest stings once in a while. I just can't seem to catch my breath at times. We need to get you to the doctor. No, I'm fine. This happened a couple years ago, but went away. Please go see a doctor. If something happened to you, it would be devastating to us. Dan smiles. Mary, you have nothing to worry about. If something did, you guys would be able to stay in this house for as long as you like, even though Derek would inherit it. That is not what I'm talking about. I need you to be well. I know what you mean. I will be all right. Summer has arrived, and Dan's health seems to get weaker, but he refused to get it checked out. Tom, Dan, and Mary are sitting around the living room talking about a variety of subjects as they do many times. The room seems festive as Tom tells old stories to Dan. Tom says there was one time Mary got some virus, and she was like a drunk all week. She would stare at the walls like a zombie. Dan asked, Mary, what kind of virus was that? Mary looks around. It's called the Xanax virus. The room gets quiet, and Dan asks, Xanax is in the pill? Mary nods yes. Tom looks shocked and quiet. Dan asks, why did you need to take a Xanax? Mary looks at Tom and says, I was going through some stress at the time. Tom cuts in. That was the time you had lost your aunt and had a hard time dealing with it, remember? Mary looks back at Tom. No, it was after the time you hit me so hard, it knocked me out. Tom gasps and looks over at Dan. Dan looks at the ground. Tom, why are you hitting Mary? Tom refuses to answer as Mary answers. I did not put the cap on the motor oil tight enough and it fell over, spilling down the garage. Tom stares at the floor. Dan says, what the hell is wrong with you, Tom? Is it because Mom and Dad were killed you had to take it out on Mary and Vickie? Tom exclaims, I never hit Vickie. You don't have to bother. You don't think she feels what you do to her mommy? Tom says, you don't have to, brother. You don't think she feels what you do to her mommy? Tom says, I don't know what gets into me. I just get so furious that I don't even think rationally anymore. Dan replies, you need to stop drinking. Stop making it your coping mechanism. I can stop anytime I want. I just need to take the edge off of things. That means you're using it as a behavioral medication, which means you're not dealing with a real problem. Tom breaks down crying. I had a big fight with Mom and Dad just before they were killed. Dan looks over at Mary as Mary begins to tear up. Dan says, that's it, Tom, let it out. Tom puts his face in his hands and stares at the floor some more. I was such a disappointment to them. Dad went out on a limb and got me a job, but I kept messing up. I had so many chances because of Dad and his good standing with the company. Mary slowly gets up and smiles at Dan as she goes to the bedroom to check on Vickie and leave the two brothers alone. Tom is in his own world, confessing all the issues of his past. Dan explains they had many talks with their dad. Tom, Dad was always proud of you. He knew you had to try harder than I because of your personal demons. He admired how you kept trying. It seemed like a huge weight lifted off Tom. Tom is speechless as Dan nods okay. The brothers embrace as Tom goes to his bedroom. Vickie is asleep as Mary looks at Tom and he sits next to her. Tom says, I'm so sorry for everything. I have been so horrible to you. I am going to do better. Mary rolls some tears and says, it will be all right. Mary has heard it all before, though. Tom smiles as they go to bed. Tom, Mary, and Vickie go off on a mini vacation for a week, the first vacation they've had in years. They have a great time traveling and seeing the sights. It's a perfect vacation, and Tom has drunk very little. When they return, Mary calls up to Dan but receives no reply. She knocks on his bedroom door and sees him laying on the bed with a book on his chest. She checks Dan. She begins to shake him, but no response, and he's stiff as a board. She begins crying and yells out to Tom. Tom comes in smiling, and Mary looks at Tom while standing next to Dan. The smile leaves Tom's face, and as shock sets in. Tom stands over Dan and says in a terrible cry, No, not you, Tom mumbles. I have no one now. Mary says, Honey, we're still here. Tom looks up with his face red and his eyes water. He puts his head down on Dan's body, crying excessively. The funeral was attended by Tom and Derek's family, as well as numerous townspeople. Dan was liked, as he had apparently died from a heart attack. Dan was well liked, as he had apparently died from a heart attack. They all stare as the preacher gives scripture and final words. Vickie starts crying as her uncle's casket is lowered. He was like the grandpa she never got to experience. Derek tells Tom, the house is yours to live in as long as you want. Tom thanks him. Derek says, it is what Dad wanted. They leave as if chains that kept the stability in everyone's lives were broken. Tom had been clean and sober for almost a year, picks up a beers. Mary says nothing as she lets him grieve in his own way. Weeks pass as Tom drinking continues and becomes the norm again. Their happy peace is deteriorating since Dan's death. Mary tells Tom, please stop drinking and let us get back to the health like we had before. Tom stands up and says, you know Dan was having issues, and you did not talk him into getting checked out by a doctor. Mary starts crying. I tried to talk him into it a long time ago, but he would not listen to me. Bullshit. He loved you and would do whatever you asked. What are you talking about? You apply your siren-like seduction to make my brother do what you want. What? That's right. You know he was weak-willed from losing his wife. I see you guys whispering all the time together. Tom, he was asking me about you hitting me. I asked him not to get involved, but he constantly asked me. He knew every time you did something to me. That's interesting. How many times did you sleep with them, whore? Don't you call me that. Tom slaps Mary to the floor as she holds her face, crying with a bloody nose. Mary stands up and runs to the bedroom as Tom chases her. They both come in and see Vickie holding Tom's gun, aiming it at her dad. Mary slowly walks over to Vickie and says, honey, let me have the gun. The gun has a trigger lock, but Vickie shakes, holding it, crying. Daddy, stop hurting Mommy. Tom sees this mess he's created and hits him like a brick wall. He seems like he is standing outside himself, seeing all in a movie, and drops to the corner of the room weeping bitterly. Mary gently takes the gun away from Vickie as she hugs Mary, crying. Vickie asks, why won't Daddy stop? Mary responds, quiet now, baby. You stopped him. You stopped him. Okay, we're going to stop here. Please like and subscribe my channel. I hope you enjoy the reading. If you have any questions for Mike, the author, my husband, leave them down below. And thank you all for coming by. Appreciate each and every one of you. Spread love and kindness wherever you go. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.